Hey everyone, and a huge welcome back to the PDHPE and CAFS podcast. We are joined by a special guest today. Lisa Highfill has joined us, and we are chatting all things HyperDocs, technology, embedding technology into your classroom. And look, Lisa has a vast experience with working in schools in the US and districts, and she's back in the classroom now. So I can't wait to hear her evolution of what that's looked like. And look, thank you so much, Lisa, for being on our podcast today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is really an honor to be with you today.
Thank you. And look, for those of us who aren't sure who you are, what you're about, can you give us a bit of a background into, I suppose, your teaching journey and then how you kind of fell into online learning, HyperDocs, all those sorts of things?
Well, I'll sum it up pretty quick. I was a fifth grade teacher for 20 years and loved that in person teaching fifth grade. And then I got really into technology and moved to the coaching position and was a coach in my school district for 10 years about. In that time period, I worked with Sarah Landis and Kelly Hilton, and we created and wrote the HyperDoc Handbook. As we were using our computer, we were trying to be really more effective with it instead of, it was kind of new at that time. Google apps were new during this time period, and we wanted to create really meaningful lessons, not just have kids get on computers and just click a bunch of links. So we were trying to teach teachers lesson design around their technology. I did that for about 10 years, and then the pandemic hit and helped our teachers through the pandemic and how to do digital learning. And it was great because at that point, we wrote the HyperDoc Handbook in 2016. So a lot of people had already been using them in the district and actually around the globe by that point. So that was kind of nice to have something that was actually very, very useful for that time period. Afterward, my district started in their educational options program. We started a virtual school, and we're in our fourth year now. And I'm back teaching full-time middle school in the virtual school. It is, keep track of all these buzzwords. It's a hybrid virtual project-based learning um,
Okay,
school,
cool.
and it's incredible. I found my happy place.
That's so great. I suppose you get to, embed practices that you have been coaching teachers about for such a long time. You now actually get to live and breathe and get to see what that looks like. And obviously, that evolution of technology, things have changed since 2016. And also, since the pandemic, things with AI and so many tools at our fingertips,
Mhm.
you get to kind of like see that happen, see that magic in the classroom every day, but virtually, like that's amazing. How did that kind of how did you go from being a coach, for 10 years to kind of stepping back into the classroom? Were you a bit nervous or were you like, yeah, I'm ready for it?
I was ready for it. I tell you, I'm back to grading. I'm spending my weekend grading. So that part, it's so important to give that feedback. But that was maybe the one part I didn't miss as much. But I've always loved creating lessons and having kids try them out. And I always tell them that your job is to study what I'm creating for you, and my job is to study you and to see how it's working. And I am just so glad to be back into that role. It was like riding a bicycle. I feel like I never forgot. And it's a lot of work working with students, but I'm kind of selfish in the rewards I get back. I just love helping kids through difficult times in learning. And it's a different role now because some of my students have a lot of different stories about why they've chosen to go virtual. And it's kind of fun to um, really personalize it this time and make the school designed to fit what they always wanted in a school instead of them having to fit into the mold of the school. So I'm in a really different position, a very unique, special opportunity.
Yeah, because like not all kids thrive in a school setting. Not all kids want to be there. Some kids can't be there because of distance. Like that's the reality of schools. And I think technology enables us to really, and I've been using this word a lot, but amplify what we do because the tools we have, like at our fingertips now, are so powerful. And I know, like that human connection is, I think, is still part of the job. But certainly, like if you can establish relationships over Zoom or over
Yes.
Teams or Google Meet, whatever, that has so much power for the kids. And look, we have a lot of, schools and teachers in our memberships that are, they call them distance education, School of the Air. We have some schools who we work with School of the Air, so they're kind of like more of they're really remote schools, but
Mhm. Mhm.
technology enables us to still have education happen
Oh,
with
it's
kids.
Yeah, that is huge. I can't believe how, I mean, Zoom is my classroom now. For kids can come into our school as well, but some do live far away, and a lot have a lot going on, so they don't have time to come in. They need a flexible program. But we do a thing called a gathering on Mondays, and we pull everyone together, and we have a walk-up song, and we teach executive functioning, like how to organize your digital life and just how to be a student. We do lessons on like how not to procrastinate and how to study and a lot of those things that kind of bond them together a little bit and get to know each other. I tell you, even with cameras off, I got to know kids through the chat, and I was fine with that, and they got to know each other. I think it's all in what you ask them to do.
Yeah,
Make a
questioning,
difference.
probing.
Yes.
Yeah, I still laugh at our teachers because, I was there during the pandemic. I had lots of senior kids on Zoom.
Mhm.
Some kids thrived, actually. Some
Uh-huh.
did very well in the online space, so different to what they did at school. And I kind of just returned to school after COVID, and
Mhm.
you kind of see those like not bad behaviors, but those kind of little things sneak back in. I'm like, hang on, let's go back to the how you were on Zoom, you know, however long we were on lockdown.
Uh-huh.
But some of the teachers, we have virtual memberships and we meet twice a term virtually. And like I say to the teachers, okay, turn your cameras on. I want to see your face. It's still a thing that like teaching you that little black box. And I do master classes with senior kids as
Uh-huh.
well for a long time. And I always find it, yeah, interesting. Like I still like seeing people and seeing their face and their reaction. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but like you said, in the chat, it can happen and they can engage and they
Yes.
can respond. I think sometimes for some kids, making eye contact is hard and seeing someone, that there might be some trauma involved.
Yes.
The power of words. Hey, who would have thought?
Yeah. It's amazing. And what more is amazing is I had said this is a educational options department of our school district. And it's really giving that notice that not everyone's going to fit in a traditional classroom setting and that kids have different options to select and choose what they wanted. And once we let them have the choice, like you are choosing this school, and there were no bells and no classrooms, and we took away all of the traditional structures. I cannot believe what rose up from that. Now, they chose their own mascot. That was one of our first projects, and they chose the phoenix. So, rising from the
Oh, I love
ashes, of
that. I love
course.
that.
And then the artists, they made the logo. They even said it's the PVA, we're the school that fits you. And so they took that ownership for this. And they noticed one of the things they noticed right away is that our school doesn't have bullies. Not
Hmm.
at all. It's very multi-age. We're K through 12
Yeah.
and high school students talking to middle school students, and nobody even notices the difference. And people are just, everyone has their own story, why they're there. And everyone's just really respectful of that story. It's powerful. And it's not something that we came out and directly, explicitly said, you will be nice to each other. It's
Hmm.
just incredible when you tear down some structures, what kids will do with it when you empower them. And I think that was probably the best thing to come from COVID time period. They were more in control at home. of their time and how they spent it. So when they came back to school and they were like, wait a second, there's all these rules we have to follow again, and we have to go by a bell and we have to be quiet. And they felt a little out of control. And I know so many of my colleagues really struggled with that in the classroom. And I spent the last 4 years really giving that control back to students. And it started with me just listening to them. And I know that sounds so simple, but I really listened and took notes and really tried to figure them out. Like, why are you saying this? Why is this so important to you? And I think that's changed everything for me as a teacher this time around. Because when they feel like they own it and they have agency for what they're doing, they'll do so much. They'll take it so far. And I'm just always shocked and amazed of what they're doing now, what they're creating.
Mm. Yeah, and I think you mentioned before, project-based learning, that choice
Yes.
and voice is so,
Mhm.
so much part of that. And I think even for us as educators, giving us a choice and a voice with what we're doing, um, technology enables that so powerfully. And I think, um, I wonder if more teachers were kind of to strip down those barriers in their classroom and use technology, um,
Mhm.
what would actually happen in like a traditional classroom with with four walls and bells and timetables still. But look, I know that you kind of on the flip side, you were definitely using technology
Oh,
a lot earlier than
yeah.
you've kind of like fast tracked it.
Mhm.
Let's go back to kind of, HyperDocs, how that evolved, what a HyperDoc is, and how you've kind of seen that kind of evolve and what's like happening now in classrooms.
Yeah, so HyperDoc is a digital lesson that a teacher creates and gives directly to the students. It is basically packaging for a really good lesson. And the key to a HyperDoc is the cycle of learning that you use. And so we always have preached to use the explore first, then explain, and then apply concept. And that cycle of learning, that alone starts the change. It starts to put students more in control of their learning because they're, engaged from the onset because they have to explore a concept first before you just tell them something. So we were seeing kids coming into the classroom saying, "Oh, just tell me what to do." I called them robot students. How many points is this worth? When's it due? And instead of like really like diving into being curious, I was starting to see curiosity was not such a great thing. They didn't want to do the work I was assigning. And so we wanted them to explore first and get background knowledge, get excited about it, learn some things about it, and then get to the lesson, the explain. And then comes the so what, now what? How do I apply that knowledge? And for an authentic purpose. And I think that's something we were constantly struggling to help kids have an authentic purpose, not just a busy work. Now, you can't do that every day, every lesson. There were times where you're just going to sit down and I'm going to teach you how to, divide fractions or whatever the case may be. And that was fine. But when it came to lessons that I really wanted to stick, that I really wanted them to not forget, HyperDoc really kind of changed that. It made the learning sticky so that it was a memorable lesson. And I made sure my most important standards, I started creating HyperDocs for them. And we started it in our fifth grade classrooms, the three authors, we were all fifth grade teachers. And people were like, I want some of those. And it just started spreading word of mouth. It's been so grassroots, I have to say. It grew and grew and grew. We started a Facebook group and it's now up to 40,000 educators just sharing lessons, in a time where it was, different teachers were trying to share work. It was really important to us that a hyperdoc was never something that you sold or paid for. So we created Teachers Give Teachers alongside of hyperdocs. And this great global sharing of digital lessons just kind of took off, which was exciting.
And so how does Teachers Give Teachers actually work?
Well, we have our hyperdocs.co is our website, and there is a database there. You can submit lessons and you can search for lessons there.
Oh,
Also, I think it's actually even better now, where we're in our Facebook group and people are constantly saying, do you have a lesson for this? Do you have a lesson for that? And it starts a conversation. And I love going in and chatting with people. I'm not a huge social media person anymore. That is a big change from me back in
Yeah.
2016. I just kind of needed a lot of diets away from social media. But I will go check the HyperDocs Facebook page, and it seems to be this one spot where we can find everyone and easily share our lessons. And it's really important that when a teacher sees a HyperDoc, one of their first reactions is, this is terrible. This is just a doc with links. But lesson design is so personal. You don't know what happened before. You don't know what happened during that lesson or after that lesson. And so we encourage, if you come across one, to edit and revise it to make it really fit the students who are in front of you. That is the critical piece, is how can you use this to get your kids excited about what they're learning?
Yeah. And look, I think the power of collaboration is so important.
Mhm.
I know like here in Australia, we've kind of like before Facebook groups came along, I was kind of using like a Facebook page to connect our
Mhm.
teachers and share lessons, and people just want to be seen and heard, and know that they're not alone. Like that there's, and I say this to our teachers all the time here in New South Wales, we're literally teaching from the same document. Like, our authority have said this is what you have to teach. You guys go about it however you want. You can teach it however you want. We've got, a number of outcomes and standards and stuff, but essentially, like, we're teaching from the same document. Like, why wouldn't we actually share that with each other?
I know.
That's kind of how I started in what I'm now doing. I just was sharing what I kind of did in the classroom. Probably a few hyperdocs in there, which I at the time wouldn't have realized they were
Uh-huh.
docs.
Yes, exactly.
But I think, keeping it to yourself, then who benefits from that? Your class and nobody else.
It is so nice. It's such a nice feeling to collaborate or to see your lesson redesigned so many different ways. I love that too. And then it starts to spark ideas for me. When
Yeah.
I'm creating a lesson or a unit, I have to talk it through with somebody. And so I do find that connection. I hate for teachers that are stranded on their own island. I mean, I really feel for them. And that's kind of a big reason we wanted to share.
Yeah. And
So,
Lisa, I've used that terminology as well. Like, I don't want you to feel like you're on an island by yourself.
yes.
Because I feel like that when I first started teaching, and I taught a
Um,
very specialist subject, teaching our senior kids. And
mhm,
I felt like that because the teacher who was at our school, who was very experienced, was more
mhm.
experienced in another subject. And I was like, okay, I feel a bit alone. Like I need some support. And obviously, like I did some, we call it our HSE, our final exam. Once I did that, I then that was my kind of gateway to finding and, sharing with a whole group of teachers who are just like me. But I think once you've kind of find your group, that's the key to kind of, keep connecting, keep
Mhm.
reading, and continuing to build off each other.
Right.
And look, for me, like that's what my, I suppose, business model now looks like. We have a
Mhm.
number of different memberships, which we are creating lessons for our teachers. We kind of say, here's our ideas of what this could look like. We actually have units of work, which would be like a HyperDoc. There are external links that take them out, that take the teachers out. And then what they're doing with their kids is actually, using the resources that we have. But I always say, this is just like my ideas, our ideas, tweak it, change it, base it on your kids' context, because our kids are all different. We need to cater for, the
Mhm.
learners who are in our room or in our virtual room, in our Zoom.
Exactly. So important. That's why I just could never download a PDF and print it and just make that. I always had to redesign anything anyway. I redesign my own HyperDoc lessons from year to year. I'm either tired of it or I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I taught that last
Yeah.
year. What was I thinking? As I evolve as a teacher.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. So what would your like ideal HyperDoc actually look like? Like if we were to kind of like look inside your virtual classroom now, how do you have them set up? What's that kind of flow from like
uh,
um, the minute the kids kind of are welcomed into the Zoom room? Where does that kind of go in that lesson?
Well, I'll introduce them to that engage piece just to get them started. We just finished 20 time projects. So our 20 time projects is they had from January all the way to May, just a couple weeks ago, to do a project of their own choice. And it was super overwhelming for them. So we had to spend a lot of time. Our first lessons for this project were just about curiosity. What are you curious about? What do you wonder about? And it was so great to get them to build this big list of things that they really cared about. And then they had to share that with each other, things that they cared about. So we used digital tools like a Padlet or any kind of a word cloud or anything like that that was collaborative. They could see each other's posts to share that. And they started to see commonalities they had. They started to give feedback to each other. And that was really, really amazing. We then moved into using a brand new tool called Inkwire. And Inkwire is a project-based learning platform that I was introduced to just this year. And it's sort of like a portfolio for kids. And so they can all post their work. I post the assignment for the next step, and we called them check-ins. So our HyperDoc, instead of explore, explain, apply, it was check-in 1 through 4, where I just had tasks that broke down the big project. And they would go and they would do, for example, their research was one of the check-ins, researching their topics, and they would post what they were learning from their research. And once they posted it, their classmates could see each other's research, and they had to go in and ask questions about the research, which drove the students to even look further because our projects were all design thinking based. So they needed the empathy of the readers. And so instead of just randomly doing research, they had to start picking um, elements from their topic that other kids cared about. And that was really, really cool to bring in that element of a community of students when they're all over the place. They were all over the Bay Area, our students, and they were traveling a lot. I have a lot of student athletes at our school. So I have a hockey team at our
Ah,
school, and
yeah, no,
they take off on a plane every Thursday to go do another tournament. So they're very busy,
yeah.
and to be connected with all the gymnasts at our school. And so that was kind of interesting to connect these different groups of students around that a concept they were doing. Uh,
Mm.
it was amazing. It was empowering that they felt like they had their classmates in a classroom, but their time was used so differently. They had that choice on how to do it. So that started our project. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I do have to share this one since it's very PE related. I mean, like so many of my projects are PE related. It was amazing. But this one project, middle schooler, she loves social media and she wanted to do a vlog of like just, outfit of the day and here's what I'm doing at home. And I had everything in me to say, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that project. But I just kept my mouth shut. I was like, okay, this is her project. And she needs to come to the conclusion of, is this the right project for me? Well, halfway through the project time, she goes, I can't do this. She goes, this is so boring. There's nothing to show. I mean, she's a sixth grader. She just sees these social media people who are having these amazing lives. And she was thinking, oh, I'll do that too. Instead, she goes, I need to get out of the house and off tech more. And so
Wow.
she signed up for a 10K race with her siblings and she started a training plan. And that was her project. How she'd never run before. And so she gave herself a month to train and prepare for a 10K race. And then she showcased her entire project about how the outcome was and what she did to train. We met online one day and we were talking about, I said, how do you know what to do to train? She goes, I don't. I said, well, let's use ChatGPT. And since she wasn't 13, I shared my screen with her. And I said, well, what should we ask it? So what questions do you have? We started talking to this ChatGPT thread, and it was incredible. Her face was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. We talked about everything from how much she should run every day and to build up to it. She also is a volleyball player. And so she had to factor in that practice. And I said, oh, well, this is going to change your eating if you're going to be exercising this much. So what should we ask it? She asked it to give her a new diet menu plan for the week. And then she wanted to know about her water intake, how much she should have, and how much sleep she should have. It was crazy. And she came up with this entire plan, and she, at the very end, ran the race. And
Wow.
it was so inspirational. I didn't tell her to do that. And I was so grateful that at the end, she could reflect back and say how important it is to get your body moving and to eat well and to sleep well. I didn't tell her that. She discovered that. And that's what I mean by that student agency when she just owned it,
Mm.
her choice. I think it'll stick with her for a long time.
Yeah, and she's learning through the experience, making her own discoveries, like realizing that, like, look, we could go down a whole rabbit hole about social media and, how much it sucks time. That's just part of it. But the learnings that she got from actually doing it herself, we can share that as educators. Her parents could have shared that, but she actually experienced it. And I'm sure, like, did she do any vlogging of her race and of her preparation?
She did a lot about her
Yeah.
preparation, and the best, she did it on paper.
Oh, really? Wow, like a little journal kind of
Yeah,
interview
she
for,
just wanted to take care of her mental health at the same
yeah.
time. And she knew because our school learning platform is all online that she needed time off the computer. And
Mm.
so she wanted to be outside. And so she would keep charts and graphs and keep track of her times that she was running. It was just really cool to see her discover that. And I think the biggest thing I could do for her, this comes right back to it. I just listened to her.
Yeah.
And I would every once in a while say, well, what are you going to do about this? And 'cause I'm not going to tell you what to do. And she says, I don't know. Well, should we ask ChatGPT? And so she would, I was really trying to model for them how to do this prompting with it and not say, go do it on your own because she's not 13. And I didn't want her to do that on her own. And it was just such a nice way for me to explicitly teach how to bring AI into her project without her feeling like, oh, I'm cheating on this project, because that's what all the middle schoolers think. Oh, I
Mm.
used AI. That means you're going to think I cheated. Well,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. It was funny. Last night I was helping my own daughter who's nearly 15. So she's in year nine and she was working on, she's at a Catholic school. So she was working on, I don't know, an assignment about a sacrament. So she was doing matrimony. So, marriage. And we're kind of, she's like, I don't know what to do for this. And I said, Cass, like, what do you think? Like, how would you answer this? She's like, I'm not sure. And I said, well, it's saying, it's asking you to, I think, look at the process of matrimony and what happens
Uh-huh.
in that sacrament. I said, you can like go into ChatGPT and give it some prompts to maybe help you, like to kind of explore that process. She's like, oh, but we're not allowed to use chat. You said, I said, no, I haven't said to not use chat GPT. I said, don't put it in there and copy and paste the whole thing. Like you have to give it some really good prompts to get some
Yeah.
really good answers. And I showed her like she started writing marriage, matrimony, the process. I said, you need to speak to it, like, prompt it with some really powerful prompts and it will
Mhm.
kind of break things down for you. And I said, let's go and check it. Like, are you sure that's what you want to include? I said, maybe not that. Like, and we kind of then had that discussion. Like, when we're researching, we don't include everything. We have to make sure our source is correct. And look, chat's great with that now. Like, before it was kind of used to make stuff up.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
it shows you
Right.
the source and you can kind of go, oh, okay. She said, oh, we actually use that source at school. I'm like, fantastic. Like, that's a source that, you guys have obviously decided that's reputable. So that conversation that we were able to have at our kitchen bench
Uh,
using ChatGPT. She's like, oh, but school use AI trackers. And I'm like, yeah,
oh.
I don't know about this, Cass. I think they're just saying that because I said you can use ChatGPT, but you can't then say all of this is, put it the whole thing in ChatGPT and say this is my work. You have
Right.
to use it to kind of explore and to analyze and evaluate the information and then come up with your own like understanding of it. Um, as I mentioned before we started recording, I interviewed Holly Clark. We actually did 2 episodes in the end.
Mhm.
Long story, but we were talking about that. Like, a lot of kids are really afraid, and even teachers are very like, no, you're not using AI to help you. But
Mhm.
these tools are at our disposal, at our fingertips. Like, why not use them? Like, why not? Why
Yeah.
not? And why not show kids how to use them?
Oh, that's a really key point is how to use them. And so, like our students, we started with school AI. There's a sidekick
Yeah,
that I could
yeah,
program, and that helped them brainstorm their topics because they needed someone to talk to them constantly about this. And it was a AI bot was asking them questions according to what I had programmed it. And when they did the writing, and since it's a virtual school, I can't be next to their desk every day. And so we used Brisk for a writing coach to help them. And I said, don't tell them what to write, but ask questions
yeah.
to help them develop it or to analyze what they've written. And it's incredible the tools that are being created for that process.
We're
Definitely.
very lucky, very lucky. AI can't do everything, but it can certainly really help us, even as educators, to cut down that preparation and even cut down that, I always say, cut down that like thought process or that thinking time. You can kind of ask it some questions. I've been doing a lot of voice. So it's my
Uh-huh.
voice, like going into ChatGPT, just prompting, I'm thinking of doing this. Can you give me like a structure to what I've just said? And then, it spits out, it's my information. Like it's not getting stuff from Google. It's getting stuff from my brain essentially. But just kind of, coming up with some sort of formula or just kind of like bringing it all together, making it a bit more, I suppose,
Mhm.
understandable or
Mhm. Mhm.
simplified. And kids can do that like very easy. A lot of our kids who aren't very good with literacy, they can speak it now.
Oh, yes.
Which is
Yeah.
so powerful. Like that just blows my mind to think of
Yeah.
what they can actually do.
Right.
Look, anyway, we could be here all day talking about AI.
I know.
Where do you see where do you see like kids really benefiting from AI and what's now that you're back in the classroom? What are you like seeing that the kids have been able to do now that they may not have been able to do, say 10 years ago when you were in the classroom?
Definitely, we're able to connect with people from around the world in ways we've never been able to connect before. So that's kind of my favorite thing about technology. They are also creating content. I always want to remind teachers. I was looking through all my drive for all my PE HyperDocs before I came on, and there's so many great ones from teachers from around the globe who it wasn't just about them creating a lesson for the students. It was about getting the students to create the lessons. So a PE game, that was one of the projects where the kids all had to make a PE game. And then the teacher had a whole slide deck of these really fun PE games that they then selected for the rest of the school year to play. And I love that it is, I call it a wraparound. It's almost like wraparound services. We're taking care of the whole child, where it's not just a task to-do list that we have to get them through. We're kind of digging in deep into who they are and making them feel valid and heard and understood and make mistakes. Like that was a terrible game. And what will we do to improve it? We've got all your classmates here. Let's do an iteration. I love to tell the kids it's about your plan B. What is going to happen? The girl who changed her project in the middle. She was so worried she was going to fail the project. And I said, well, what's your pivot? What's your plan B? And really, I think that is the amazing piece to this, especially doing project-based learning. I know I've been all over from AI to HyperDocs to projects now, but I think it's so important for kids to make mistakes, actively make mistakes through the process, and then come through that process and be able to reflect on it. How do they recover from that? And I'm seeing that to be so much more than when I was in the classroom. And I was so concerned on just daily tasks to get through. And it was this cycle of, here's the worksheet, complete it, I'll grade it, I'll put it back in your folder for you to take home at the end of the week. And I was missing something in the middle of it, this connection with them and them connecting about why were we doing this. So I'm sticking projects in everywhere I can now. and making it more student driven. You know, that student created content, you can't beat it. Um, my PE teacher collection, it went everything from how to use the equipment. Students made tutorial videos. So it's not all on the teacher to do that, to what are some good PE healthy meals that you're going to start cooking at home. So incorporating health into their class and into the mental health piece to it as well. So
Yeah, look, there's so many things that technology, like, it can't replace. And look, this is a conversation I've actually had with a few people outside of education, or people who have left the system, or teaching in general. They're like, um, schools need to change to adapt, and teachers won't be around forever. Technology is going to. I'm like, no, I don't think teachers are going to be replaced by, AI or a robot. It still needs that educational piece. It still needs that pedagogy. And look, Holly and I spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. That pedagogical approach and that relationship and that listening. I'm sorry, but a bot can't do that. A bot can't connect with someone. Although anyway, like, kids try to kind of make a connection to
yeah.
ChatGPT, but it can't replace that relationship that we have. And I think we do need to. There are, lots of places that do kind of need to come to the party and go, look, if we don't adapt, if we don't, embrace it, then kids, look, I don't think kids will be left behind, but let's be really open to it. Let's experiment and see what happens. And, like your story about the 10K, vlogger, um,
Yeah.
that's something that, you probably, or you obviously didn't expect. And it all came about because of experimentation and her learning
Mhm.
through that application, which is so powerful. So
It is
powerful.
pretty amazing. So I do want to share I'm working on an idea.
Okay, I'd love to hear this.
So I have a lot, I said I have a lot of athletes. So I've got this hockey team, and they are on the ice like from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And they just come off the ice, take a break, and they do their schoolwork in their pads and their skates. And I meet them at the ice rink and will talk to them if they're, and work with them. And I see how hard they work. And our gymnasts, one was actually an alternate for the Olympics last year, and I have another one who's, racing off. So they're not just doing hobby sports. They're very dedicated to their athletics. And so I'm going to be their PE teacher next year.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm
That's
thinking,
cool.
wait a second. You guys do more athletics than I've ever seen. You were in such great shape. And what we've been doing is collecting PE logs where they just write down the number of hours. This was before I was the PE teacher. And I said, well, what do you like about, I was like getting ready for this. Help me be your PE teacher. What did you like about PE or what did you not like? They're like, please don't make us fill out the logs. We're just filling them out. We don't even know what we're writing on there. Um, let's make this real. I said, okay, your first project next year, you're going to design your PE class.
Yeah, cool.
I'm going to give you the parameters of what I need for documentation, to give you credit for it. And
Yeah.
you're going to show me how you might do that because you guys are amazing with how much physical activity you have. And so let's design this. And boy, you're all different sports. I mean, I have a cricket player, I have softball, I've got all kinds of sports. And some people are not doing sports, they're recovering from surgery. I have a student. And so it's got to be different for everyone. And that's my new design thinking challenge to
Yeah.
help them come up with the way. I'm going to use technology to connect them all because they're all over the place. They're not in one room and share ideas and inspire each other to do a personalized PE class for sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. And boy, I tell you, if any of your listeners have any ideas, I think I'm going to be talking to ChatGPT to get some advice on how to put this together. And I'm
Oh,
going to be scared to death because that's how I am with every project. I just cross my fingers and go, oh, please come up with good ideas. And then just keep asking and pushing and listening. And we'll see where we are next year. I cannot wait to see what
yeah.
happens.
Well, like, obviously, please, like, tap into. I I taught like middle school, we taught high school. I taught high school for PE for 16 years. So
Oh, nice.
I had lots of, those younger years, those
Yes.
grade 7 and 8s and 9.
Uh-huh.
I loved
Uh-huh.
those. I loved those kids because a lot of other like teachers were like, "Oh, our year 7 and 8s are so annoying." Love their energy. I love their questioning. Like so many questions about, reproduction and sex ed and relationships, like
Yes.
so many different things. And they're just like zest for physical activity. Like our practical lessons were just like so fun because they would just love it.
Yeah.
You could kind of see it dwindle, like at the end of year 8, coming into year 9, they started to get a
Oh.
bit of attitude and snarly and
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
hormones set in, and it is obvious, that time that a lot of, because I taught all girls school for 14 years,
Oh.
a lot of them start to drop off in their sporting, because I don't know, body image and hormones all mixed together and boys and
Right.
relationships. But yeah, look, please ask away. We have lots of things that we can help you with, but how awesome is it that, you have the kids who are, talented athletes. They would, maybe for some PE teachers, there would be leaps and bounds ahead of them because they're living and breathing it every single day. They're actually like, they probably do have some sort of training plan and some sort of meal planning that they have to do anyway, for their trainings.
That and staying healthy from injuries is a really big thing for them. They don't want to be injured. Yeah, so I'm actually connecting, having them do, we're going to start off with just interviewing. They're going to interview their coaches and their everyone who's involved with their teams, because I think that's really important to, they're like, you mean we get credit for what we're doing here? Well, yes, you spend your whole day on the ice. Of course, you should get school credit for this. And so they got really excited. And so they're going to interview the coach because they want it to, whatever the coach is trying to instill with them, let's connect more of their life with school and learning so that it's so authentic to them. And it's not just another thing they have to do to make sure they get their PE log turned in. That's our one goal we're going to do.
Yeah, well, that's really exciting. Please keep in contact. I mean that. Like, I really want to hear how they go, and obviously, if I can do anything to help, yeah, with ideas. But look,
Mm.
to wrap up, Lisa, we could be here all day talking about technology and HyperDocs and project-based learning. I think the biggest thing that I've really taken from our chat is that it's not like one thing. It's like a combination of different things working together. And that's what good teaching is. And I would say, yeah, kind of add a few new things to your toolkit. Okay, loved that. Love that inquiry-based learning. Love that formative assessment tool. We're kind of just continuing to add to our toolkit. And I think, if we have younger teachers listening, it's like a bit of a bowerbird, like we have magpies in Australia. It's like that. You're kind of gathering. Okay, I'm going to add that in. I'm going to add in, oh, didn't really like that.
Yes.
I might try it with that class. Um, Anyway, look, my last question is, if you could give your younger teacher self some advice, what would it actually be?
It
Unbelievable.
would be embrace the messy,
Yeah.
that don't be so afraid and in control and trust the process. That is sort of a motto I have. Just trust the process and they will come along if you can guide them. Just let it be messy and it doesn't have to be perfect at the end. So
Beautiful advice. Excellent. And if teachers want to hear more about HyperDocs, your virtual school, where can they find you and connect with you?
the best way is go to the Facebook group, HyperDocs, and you can join in the conversation. I am the one to talk to you there. I post about my students and about school all the time there. I'm going to be posting their projects there. So you can see the lots of hockey projects coming through. And we're also at hyperdocs.co. You can learn more about HyperDocs there. So
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lisa. I feel very blessed to have this chat with you in your afternoon. And thank you for everything that you're doing to connect teachers, build those relationships, and I think just make life easier for everyone through the power of sharing. Just that collaboration is very powerful. So thank you very much.
thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Pleasure.